Hi, Hasan. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get into some of the interesting questions I have for you, would you tell us a little about Telenor Microfinance Bank? Tell us about the business. What's it all about?
So, thank you for having me here. Telenor Microfinance Bank is actually Easypaisa. So, we are a fintech player and we are into the payments business. And from the payment side, we are also dwelling into the embedded finance business. So all of the pieces of the puzzle for a customer need, that is something that we are fulfilling. So yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Maybe you can tell us, some of our viewers overseas are not as familiar with Easypaisa. Maybe you can tell them about how groundbreaking it was and the
So Easypaisa started back in 2009-10, where there was one problem statement which was addressed being part of Telenor at that time, which was transferring money, and that too over the counter. And since that time, we have come far along, and Easypaisa has developed into a major brand, as well as we have monthly active users who are actually doing financial transactions every month. And out of that, they're almost touching 9 million mobile active users as well. So in the past few years, we've been actually focused on the digital part of things. And not only that, but our conventional bank, Microfinance Bank, that has also transformed into a digital first bank. So all of the productive lending side that we call the disbursements are done in the wallet, the repayments are done by the wallet. We give visibility through there. So we have come a long way. The business has come a long way, and this is complemented with a lot of proactive and very progressive regulations by State Bank of Pakistan as well. And we work really closely to see how we can propel this industry to the next mile.
So what does that transfer in terms of deposits and transfers? I don't know, what's the proper metric here?
So it is. I can tell you that it's a large deposit base as compared to being a digital bank. We are now actually dwelling into embedded finance as well. So we have recently launched a lot of products related to nano lending. Productive lending was already there for us, and buy now, pay laters. So we are actually using a lot of our internally generated assets for these kind of product lines, which effectively positively impact the lives of the customers as well. So that is where. And on the technology side, we have a very clear vision and strategy of partnerships and integration. As an isolated entity, we are nothing. It's a whole ecosystem that is working together to propel the digital adoption of the bank accounts as well in the country.
So you're very focused on solving people's banking and, let's say, financial related problems. But I read somewhere that I think it was Gartner that's saying that 80% of financial leaders like yourself worldwide do consider RPA as an option, or as a viable option or a viable solution to when they're trying to optimize their operational efficiencies or their customer experience. Could you, if you were to single out one single pain point that you would say inspired Telenor Microfinance Bank to pursue RPA as a solution to some of their internal problems, what would that be?
I think we just have to go back to see what we are actually doing, right? So first and foremost, we're serving the customers. So the customers come in first. What we realized was that this ecosystem was expanding so much because it's a totally integrated ecosystem. We are nothing all alone, right? So the service levels are not only dependent on us, but they are dependent on our partners as well. So in this kind of an integrated ecosystem, it was really difficult to keep up the service levels, or even to monitor our services in that way. And then obviously, as a net result, it had an impact on the customers, and obviously with a growing customer base, there were customers who had to be served as well. They had their own challenges, issues, They had to know information about the services. So these are kind of things that were centralized. The customers were centralized in all of the endpoints. So then we picked up one part of the overall business, which was on the engineering side, and we realized that after a lot of changes on the business process side, the resultant where we need human intervention, that is where RPA can really serve the purpose. So we picked up two major areas where that was the monitoring of our portfolio to keep the service levels up. And the other part was how we are serving the customers better in terms of customer servicing too. So fundamentally, these are the two areas that we picked up initially.
So were these matters of increasing efficiencies or reducing errors or maintaining consistency? Was it in those areas, or were there actual problems that were creating QoS or quality of service issues, and that it became a critical thing for you guys to implement it? Something maybe humans couldn't do, that something a machine could do better?
Yeah, so actually all of what you have said, it's fundamentally to enhance efficiency, right? So to monitor a portfolio as big as this, where we have actually thousands of integrations, it was actually getting to the eyeballs were pretty less as compared to what we had to monitor. So that is where RPA came in, where we decided that we can do a lot of things, which and then divert our existing human force to other better jobs as well.
That's a very interesting point there, because I was going to ask, I mean, when you speak to leaders like yourself, oftentimes they will talk about efficiencies and consistency, quality of service. But I'll always, coupled with that discussion, there'll always also be the point that you just made, where we can free up headspace in our human capital and allow them to move on to, things that humans are better at: creative thinking, critical thinking, stuff where decision-making, reasoning, or these things come into play. But in addition to that, they'll oftentimes cite cost-cutting or cost optimization as a key driver of RPA implementation. Do you agree with this sort of standpoint?
Yeah, I think I would agree in terms of cost optimization, because with such an expanding portfolio, we probably would have been adding a lot of human resources, right? And that would not have been that much efficient. So what we actually did, that RPA augmented this, and our existing staff was able to do more creative stuff, right? Awesome. And they were able to focus on things that will take us even further, while RPA is doing the business as usual for us.
So do you also would agree then that by implementing RPA, it's helping the humans in your organization do what humans do better, rather than repetitive, mundane or tasks? Right?
Absolutely.
Right. So let's talk about scalability now. Now, it seems to me that you guys took RPA to help you scale in a more effective, controlled sort of way, whilst maintaining your quality of service and customer experience, and obviously the functional aspects of what you do. But tell me about scalability with RPA. How do you perceive scaling with RPA? Does this now, will this take you into another ballpark potentially? Could it take you into like a next sort of quantum of expansion? Would it enable that?
I think, like I mentioned earlier, that the ecosystem has been expanding, right? So that's a lot of organic expansion as well. But what RPA is actually doing is helping us to expand, right? Otherwise, what would have happened was that we would not be able to expand that much, because, and in the end, the customer would have been suffering, right? If we did not implement this part. So I take it in a way that the business expansion was coming in, and this is something that has augmented, and this has helped us in addressing customer challenges as well. Because with an expansion, if you're unable to serve the customers, that is something that is not workable, right?
You're going to contract.
Then yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is the perspective how I see the RPA. So it has actually augmented our team members, okay, and how we run our operations. So yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about implementation. So there is this sort of belief or understanding in the RPA community, if you will, that if you go into an implementation scenario with a proof of concept, like an initial POC, that in the long run, when you get into the implementation phase of all the various use cases that you want to automate, that generally makes the process smoother. Do you have any comments on this? Did you have a POC initially, or did you go straight into implementation?
We did, for a couple of our basic processes, we did a POC, but then we partnered with and there we gave ourselves and a challenge as well, because that is something that our requirements were completing the whole value chain of our incident management, complaint handling, and a few more other things. So that is where we had the processes had to be designed. We have a large, diverse technology stack, and it had to touch upon our technology stack as well, which have different sets of data which had to be looked into. As well as closing the loop on the incident part as well. So we implemented robocalls, we implemented, a lot of other escalation metrics, how things need to be handled. So I think it was a challenge given to and I think they did a pretty good job in the end, right?
Good to hear. Good to hear. So on the process side, oftentimes we find that when we are in the process of implementing, before we implement, whilst we're doing the sort of business analysis side of things, when we're trying to figure out what the process is, so what does the human operator do in a specific use case? Where do they click? Where do they go? What do they pull? What decisions do they make? We sometimes find ourselves in a situation where our BA is sitting there going, why are we scratching our ear like this when we could be scratching our ear like this? Or like this, sorry. And we end up having to re-engineer the processes. Did you have any cases of that in your implementation experience?
Yeah, a lot, because we are used to business process re-engineering as well. So we have actually transformed parts of our business by actually completely revamping our business processes. So when we were partnering with that was the first thing that we wanted to do. That if we are monitoring or we are handling our customers in a particular fashion, then we are not supposed to. If you're not supposed to do like this, if that is not the optimum way, then we shifted that way, and the residual stuff was left to the RPA to do.
So that's like a multi-factor optimization, isn't it? Like you optimize the process and then you automate it.
Yeah, and that is where also helped us a lot in providing us that support and consultancy and experience as well.
Okay, so based on your experience with RPA in your sector, in your business, what advice would you give other organizations or in the sector, in the fintech sector, or in the banking sector generally?
I think in general, I think this is something that we don't have an option going forward not to adopt, right? First and foremost, because, and in particular the banking sector, because the customers are actually changing a lot. The behavior is changing a lot, and their behavior is becoming more like instant now. So to do that, with a growing customer base and with the population that we have in Pakistan, I think we have no other option than to adopt these technologies to serve our customers better, because that is the end goal, right?
Absolutely.
To help the business grow and to serve our customers better. So I think from our experiences, this is just the starting point that we have. We picked up one area of our organization, but we see that from a banking perspective, this has a lot of potential where we come to customer due diligence, compliance related angles, how we are managing the business operations side, and potentially going forward integrations too, where RPA can really support us. So that is my 2 cents around it.
Well, it's definitely a good thing we have these technologies. Otherwise, we'd live in a very stagnant, low-quality world with people miserable in their repetitive jobs. So anyway, thank you very much for coming in today. It's been an honor. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me here.